first time I had you here, you talked to me about your podcast and your website, and I was just telling you off camera how I went to it and cried, a clean cry. And a clean cry for me, for those of you who don't know what that means to me, is no pain. It was more like healing, so thank you so much.
You're welcome, thank you.
So I didn't realize, and I've read your book twice, but I guess I wasn't focusing on the time in which you felt sick per se versus now when you feel that you are in good health. And you use the term healing, and I keep harping on that because I think so many of us have been told from whatever mental health challenge, crisis, moment we're having that that's not possible. But you were an example of, yes, that is possible.
Yeah, and that's really one of the main reasons I wanted to write the book, and you know, I put the information on my website to get that out there, because my greatest fear throughout the whole process was, would I ever be me again? Would I ever be able to live my life again? You know, so, you know, I wanted to show as an example that it is possible.
I am totally attracted to the way you say, because I can relate to it. Will I ever be me again? Do you think, and I think we talked about this a little bit in our first segment, do you think you are the same way you were before?
I think I'm more me than I was before.
I was listening to one of your podcasts and your amazing website, and you're talking about removing the ego. Correct me anytime I'm wrong. I'm trying to not quote you so I don't mislead anybody, but you talk about stripping basically and finding yourself within that pain. Can you tell us a little bit about how you define ego?
So ego I define as either beliefs that we hold or things that we identify with. So for me, when I was younger, you know, I did really well in school. You know, I was a straight A student. So that was part of my identity. Like, I'm a good student, and that's what I identified with. And then when I was sick and I couldn't hold down simple jobs, you know, I couldn't do simple jobs, or you know, I'd try to go back to school and I'd have to drop out. That wasn't who I thought I was. That wasn't, you know, my part of my identity. So it had to break that for me. And just through all the loss and the hardships, things that, you know, I thought were qualities that I had that I lost, I realized that really wasn't me. Those were just things that I, you know, identified with, but they didn't really make me who I was. I found that there's something deeper that is really just, you know, a deeper love and meaning than the things that I put meaning on.
That's a beautiful way to explaining it. I think all of us can use a little bit of help with understanding that we're not one thing, that we're not defined by a title, an experience, a one chapter of our lives. And I do research all the time just to find out where I am and how much more do I have to learn, and the answer is always lots and lots and lots and lots, thank God. But also because we identify with all of sometimes material things and titles and audiences, you know, should I have an audience of 1,000 people, does that mean I'm more important than if I have an audience of 5? I've learned to love intimacy. So smaller groups sometimes are even better for me because I get to see you up close. I get to hear you up close. We have more time. I think that a lot of people fear intimacy, and because we have been trained, right, that we have to have all these barriers. We've been educated, you know, your space, their space. And, you know, some of that is really important to keep yourself healthy, but sometimes you have to cross that line. And I was having lunch with one of my buddies today, and he said, I fear telling another person of the same sex, I love you. I fear. And I thought, oh, that's painful, because if I love you, without any sexuality and none of that romance, Although I think friendships have a lot to do with this romance of I like that you're around, you're in the world, you're in my world. Can I say that to you? And where I come from and what I've learned is I can. I can say, Josh, I love you. I'm so glad you're here. But when you feel you can't say things like that, that's a painful place to be in, I thought. And that just happened today. Let's talk a little bit about, because you wrote this book, I'm sure that you were aware that not everybody was going to look at your book and go, ah, I want to read this. That probably most people that we travel with would look at the book and go, oh, heavy. Or really, another guy who self-heals, great. But you still put it out there. Did you receive any of those emotions? That were they hosted by you at all, of how is this going to be received?
Yeah, I mean, I really did try to have a positive spin to the book. So, I mean, I put the traumatic experiences in there, a couple examples, so people would know what it was like. But I really did try to put some of the insights and the positive thread throughout the whole experience, you know, for people to see. But, I mean, I wasn't worried about people not wanting to read the book. You know, I thought if someone was suffering and they found it and they read it and it helped them, even just one person, then it was worth it to me. So that really wasn't a concern. I did think I might get some resistance about the homeopathy, because I know not everyone's open to it and doesn't fit into certain
Tell us a
ways
little bit
of
about
thinking.
your experience with it, because I find this so interesting.
With
and
homeopathy?
Yes, I'm still learning. Fascinating.
I mean, to me, it was incredible. It was a miracle, because actually after being on homeopathy and discontinuing the medication, I explain in the book, about 9 months later, I started to get some symptoms returning, which was typical after going off my medication. I would get, you know, I'd relapse about 9 months later. So this third time that I was on homeopathy, I started getting some symptoms return, and then like the next day they were worse, and my wife noticed that I was different, and we called my doctor, and he switched my remedy. I just went and picked up a different remedy at the health food store. The next day, the symptoms were less, and the day after that, they were gone. And before that, I would have been in the hospital within a week, full-blown psychotic episode. So it's amazing, and because because homeopathy is something that doesn't conflict with an existing belief system that I have, you know, I was open to it, and I do see it as scientific, and I've seen scientific studies about it.
Yes.
Peer-reviewed, double-blind studies. So it is science, and it worked for me. It worked miracles. So I really hope, and part of why I wrote the book is I wanted to get that out there, because I hope that good doctors and scientists and researchers take it seriously and are open to it, you know, as a new, you know, a type of science that maybe is evolving, you know, that, and, you know, maybe we haven't.
I totally agree with you. I think some of the challenges, and I think this is, you know, preaching to the choir with you, is that we have so much money attached to the traditional medicine. And I take some traditional medicine, and it's helpful for me. But I don't take 80% of what people would like me to take. Because I'm able to. I am able to function, and I do use certain vitamins, certain things that allow me to do that. However, the money that's available for research, for natural things, for things that do not have all of these side effects, it's not sexy, it's not the norm. For our society, it's not supported by as much research, so therefore people shy away from it. So we go back to what I call the friend and enemy of the world, the dollar. And so I hear this constantly where people would say to me, well, did a doctor give it to you? And I'm like, no, but the doctor did not give me my condition either.
Yeah.
So I didn't go there looking for
Yeah.
it either. So there is a lot of things that I have learned myself to use that don't necessarily follow the traditional ways. But I'm telling you, the way that you explain it in your book is so easy to follow, first of all. You also give us examples in your book, because not everybody is as informed as you. Nor do we want to go through what you went through to receive that information, right? I don't wish my trauma to anybody.
No. It's hard-earned wisdom, I call it.
Yes.
So
I want to go back to your podcast. I was listening to how you talked about being stripped of the ego and identity and spirituality, and you do quite a bit of this, step by step by step. And they're short enough where you can get in the car and listen to it, be at the gym and listen to it. At the gym, trust me, everybody's so busy doing their workout, they don't care what you're listening to. And you can put your headphones on. Short, very soothing, no judgment whatsoever. Your tone has no judgment. And I learned from that. I thought, here's a guy who has been through what I like to call hell and back. And this generosity, this compassion, this way of saying to the world, hey, got no judgment. If it helps you, great. If it doesn't, it's out there in the universe. And may someone catch it. I thought that was beautiful.
Thank you.
No, thank you for putting it out there. And so I'm going to become, one of those people who's looking for it. So I had to learn, how to get the app for the, podcast and, do all this kind of stuff. But it's all on your website, which makes it very easy to navigate. Where do you see your book? I recommend everybody pick up a copy. For you, for your library, for a friend. If you're even intrigued to argue against what we believe, pick it up. But there's poems that you put in there. Were you completely aware of what you were feeling when you wrote the poems? Or were they happening within your symptoms and your days? I'm talking about the book.
I mean, I was completely aware during my symptoms. I mean, I was aware through the whole process. That's why I remembered such intricate details of the whole experience.
That's how I felt.
Yeah.
Out of body, but yet aware.
Yeah.
Did you feel that?
I felt like the world didn't make sense. Like the world had changed, but I still felt the same inside.
Did you feel left behind?
I felt left behind in life. All my friends were just kind of passing me by, achieving their dreams, their careers, their families, moving on, and I was just like struggling.
Where are my wheels?
Yeah, I did.
Who took off my wheels? Yeah. It is painful to know that one needs to be stripped this way sometimes to find your light. So I want to use that word that you used, and you wrote it when you dedicated your book. When I said you got to sign my book, and you said light. And then in your podcast that I was listening to, well, I listened to a couple, but I'm going to focus on the one, you say that everybody's a light.
Yeah.
How do you come up with that? Where do you get to the place where you say everybody's a light, everybody's part of, in my belief, one light?
For me, it was through my own personal experience. So what I discovered inside myself, I think, is in other people as well. So underneath all those ego beliefs and identification and who we think we are and who we want to be, when you get all underneath that is just someone who wants to love and be loved and have meaning. And because I found it in myself, and I don't think that's from me, I don't think that's of me, I think that other people have it as well.
So do you think if all of us found our light, I'm not asking you for science, I'm asking for what your heart and soul believes in. May I?
Yeah, of course.
If you think, if all of us found our light, even if it was temporary, because you know how we all go in there and out. Sometimes we still have dark moments. Do we not?
Yeah, it's a daily practice. Yeah.
We would be so enlightened as a universe.
Well, I think we definitely there'd be more joy and caring in society and less suffering, and we'd be more focused on what matters and less focused on things like just consuming and achieving and competing and all that stuff.
When people hear the term, because I know when I say to people I have a brain injury, they seem to be a little bit more tolerant of that when I talk about my depression or when I was in the hospital or suicide, because brain injury means you got an injury. So of course these things happen to you. No. The pain was exactly the same of those my brothers and sisters were sharing in the hospital. I mean, we process it differently. And we navigated those systems differently. I was an advocate before I got sick, so certain things are part of your core. So I probably identify with other areas that other people didn't. So you don't change your core, but you have a different diagnosis than I do, and it's schizoaffective. Now, all of these labels, do you consider are necessary for the beginning of our search, or not necessary?
I think it's helpful. It can be helpful. Yeah. I mean, it basically just describes symptoms. So the term schizoaffective is labeled based on certain symptoms. It doesn't really tell why it's happening or what's causing it, but it could be helpful. I mean, for me, I didn't believe I had an illness the first year or so, and then once I accepted that I had an illness, it could be helpful. But I don't think it's the end-all and be-all.
So when you say that you stop me anytime that I'm going anywhere you don't want me to go, the beauty, I think, of my show, if I may, my eagle, says that we can have this conversation without me having a 2-hour planning of what we're going to talk about, because then it's not organic for me. Tell me a little bit about, so we are the light, and we find compassion. I'm looking at your website. We find compassion, we find our rhythm in life. We find the beginning, right? Bipolar, you just did something on bipolar. I thought that was really cool. If we start using terms like the light and cool and interesting, we take a little bit away the stigma about, oh, that's horrible. I don't know that I want to read that. Oh, no, that's bad. I don't know that I want to talk about that. But that comes from the I, right? So we fear a lot of the things that we don't know, right? So we don't want to do that.
Yep.
So tell me a little bit about what happens for you when you figure out, okay, so they tell me schizoaffective. Now it takes you a year and something to say, okay, I'm going to ride with us. Because you didn't believe you had an illness. Where does that resistance, you think, comes for most of us? Because I was there too.
It came from what I was experiencing. What I was experiencing to me was very real, and other people didn't understand it, and therefore I thought.
So it was your truth.
Well,
at that moment.
It was a real experience. It felt like, to me, it was a real experience. So, and I just thought, well, other people don't understand it, or it doesn't fit into society's way of being, or whatnot. But it still felt very real. And like I said, I still felt like myself inside. I felt like the same person I was when I was getting straight A's in school. So to me, it was like something out there is wrong, not something in here type of thing. But when I accepted that I had the illness was when I realized the illness was my inability to function in my life. It wasn't really what I was experiencing. It was the fact that what I was experiencing wasn't well adapted to my life, and I couldn't make my life work. So I accepted that I had an illness. Yeah.
when you decide that, okay, all right, I'm going to, all right, let's see where this is going.
Mm-hmm.
What shift? Because it's not only, okay, thanks for whatever it is you're giving me.
Mm-hmm.
What do I do with this now? I have a diagnosis.
Mm-hmm.
You telling me that all of these, here's the pharmacy of things that I can use to maybe help me.
Mm-hmm.
What was your presentation emotionally?
Well, the first thing I thought, which was actually, I think gave me some relief, was that I was going to do something about it. And I was going to use all my resources, including medication. So I actually, after accepting I had an illness, I said, I'm going to use the medication to do what I have to do to get my life back on track. So it was something, it kind of motivated me a little bit.
It did.
Yeah.
So you took traditional medication.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And that, we talked last time, was not as helpful to you because you felt kind of numb and not yourself, correct?
Yeah, it did stop the symptoms, but I felt really numb and not like myself at all. So I couldn't, even though I was able to maybe hold a job or kind of go through the motions, I didn't feel fulfilled.
You had not arrived.
I didn't feel like myself. Yeah.
So you still, what I find so fascinating about your journey is that although you were feeling all these things and you're going through this very, very difficult time and stripping of all that you're still very aware
Mm-hmm.
of who you are.
Mm-hmm.
I had none of that.
Yeah.
I had no sense of who I was.
Yeah. I mean, I think I lost who I was in the sense that, oh, I'm a straight A student.
Yeah, your identity.
So I did lose those things.
Right.
But I didn't lose what it feels like to be me inside. Like deep down, like this is me, and I knew that what I was going through wasn't right. Like that wasn't me.
Do you
So,
think the Creator in some way was holding you and saying, I still got you, we're going to figure this out?
I'm sure. Yeah. Yeah.
People shy away from identifying their
Mhm.
Creator, putting a label on it,
Mhm.
their name, or whatever it is.
Mhm.
But I always say, and I mean this respectfully, I always say to people, if all of those, God, Buddha, whatever you identify with,
Mhm.
were here today, they would be in the psych unit. Because society is so unable right now to see it.
Mm-hmm.
We go to our community of faith, we practice what we practice, but if it really showed up, I don't know
Mhm.
how prepared I would be either, because you don't see it, you feel it, you sense it. I meet somebody, if you're open to it, like
Mhm.
energy for me.
Mhm.
Do you feel those things as well? Do you feel energy? Do you feel like, wow, I met this person for a reason, or wow, I didn't know that 5 years ago, but that person came in my life
Mhm.
5 years ago, and now they have this like anchoring effect in
Mhm.
my life?
Yeah, I mean, I recognize divine synchronicities and I believe things happen for a reason and there's meaning and whatnot.
You do?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think what you were saying earlier about how if old spiritual teachers were alive today.
Okay, yeah.
I saw this video recently of a tribe in Africa, and the person that got mental illness would become the healer of the tribe, and they would say our tribe is sick. They wouldn't say that person is sick. And for me, like,
It goes back to your light. We're all the light, right?
yeah, and also we are also this, our relationships with each other and with the world. So for me, the illness was also an illness of relationship. So yes, I was still sick, but my relationship with my family wasn't working, with my friends, with society, with my job.
Your tribe,
So-
your community. Yeah.
Yeah. So it really is bigger, and it affects all of it. My family was affected by my illness.
Yeah, of course.
Society is affected when people are sick. It affects the society as a whole. So
So I'm gonna applaud you on everything you've been able to do. I don't know how you've been able to do it in 3 years and a quarter. I feel like a teenager. I'm, 16 and a half or 9 and a half or whatever. I think is amazing what you have been able to achieve. I would love to walk closer to you just so people can see how much light you bring. That's the reason why you are actually here, in my belief. How do you tell other men, and I was talking to you about this off camera, because I hear in my workshops or in my sharing time, I hate the word training, because that means I'm at some level, have something that they don't. I like the sharing piece. And I think of myself as a toolbox, and I say, okay, you grab whatever you can from my toolbox, but you build with it, it's on your own. Or you could throw it away too and go, this is the worst hammer I've ever had in my life. How do you feel like you can impact or hope to impact? And I know you want to impact anybody, but the male population that I constantly hear from them, shh, shh, quiet, don't tell anybody. I don't want to tell my wife, my partner, my cousin, my mother, my father. How do you think they can get closer to you or understanding, to your light, and maybe find theirs? Because you didn't stop being a man through this whole process.
I mean, to be honest with you, I don't really think about being a man that often. So, I mean, I know you brought it up, but I mean, I know for me it was hard not being able to hold a job because I didn't think I'd be able to have a family.
So the provider piece of it.
Yeah, so that was hard.
So it does have some impact.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I never really thought about it specifically because I'm a male, but I mean, it's part of our journey. It's part of our learning experience, and
where do we go?
I mean, it's hard to talk about. I mean, I still even don't necessarily tell everyone I meet, hey, I had a mental illness, because people don't understand it. They're afraid of it.
Can you imagine every time we shake a hand?
Yeah.
Hi, I have a TBI. My name is Mia.
Yeah. People are afraid of it because they don't understand it. I mean, people are afraid of physical illnesses that they know have a physical cause, and they don't blame the person for it. But then with mental illness, there's also like, well, what role does the person play in it? Is it their fault at all? And then also they're afraid of mental illness because people are afraid of, I think, going crazy.
Right. Well, insanity is a tricky thing, right?
Yeah.
So I get in a lot of heat, which I'm okay with. Once you've walked some of our dark sides, you go, doesn't mean it doesn't hurt. It doesn't mean you're not challenged by it. But people will always say to me, how could you say you'd rather lose anything but your brain? And I go, because without my mental health, I don't think I could survive anything.
Yeah. It really is torturous. It's terrible. I mean, I think it's, I think general illness is hard enough, but then when it's your mind, it's everything. It's your identity. It's everything. It affects everything.
What to trust, what not to trust,
Yeah.
who to trust, when to trust, who's on my side. Am I on my side?
What's real? What's not real?
What's not real? What's
Everything.
this common reality that they're talking about? I'm going to dare to ask you this question because I know it's very difficult for a lot of people, but I'll start with I, because I find that when I start with I, it's a lot easier for people. When I was in the hospital or some of the traditional treatments, I would love to, and I'm stealing this from Martina McBride, to have a house of love. You come in the way you come in. We will give you the love, whatever that looks like that day, and hopefully it'll make it better. And you can continue with your journey, whatever that is. So that's my ideal. So if anybody's listening to me and wants to help me create a house of love, we can talk about what that looks like. And I think this community is beginning right now. You had me bring Diane Santos, who we're bringing back with you here.
Great.
You were here, Sarah Raskin. So there's many of us out there talking about the importance of being a full person. When I was in groups, they had me, and I just recently was able to capture this emotionally. Intellectually, I got it. Emotionally, different thing. I was in groups with people who suffered of chemical dependency. I could not relate to that at all. And I had such a hard time. It was like the child in me wanted to scream. And I would cry, and I was so frustrated, and I was like, I do not have a chemical dependency. Later on, little by little, stripping, because you don't want to be boxed, but that box scared me more than any other box in the world. I learned that we had some common ground. The being invisible, they're trying to get rid of the pain, the running away, not knowing where we're running to, who to trust. So then
Being misunderstood.
Being misunderstood. So then I was like, I get it now. Not get it like if I was using, but get it. We're all hiding in some type of form from the pain. Were you ever in any group or in any place that you had similar, a feeling of, I don't have that challenge. How is this going to be helpful to me?
Yeah. I mean, even within, the mental health groups I was in, I didn't always felt like I fit in. I mean, we're all different people. We're all unique. So just because we might all have a label, the same label, doesn't mean we're going to relate, as people necessarily. I mean, we have commonalities, but I think that's with everyone.
Were you ever in a group, and I share this with you, all of you at home and whoever's watching us, so when you look at yourself in the mirror and when you start beginning to feel uncomfortable and trying to figure things out and having that bad day, you're not alone. Josh is part of the community. I'm part of the community. We're all looking for our light. We're all looking to deal with our pain. We're all having some good days, hopefully more good days than bad days. You wrote a book. I don't even know how you did that. People ask me all the time, write a book. I'm like, I wouldn't even know where to start. I play with stuff all the time. I don't know where to start. And then you've been able to create this website and podcast. Me is this avenue and sharing with others about my experience. Where do we go from here, I think is the hardest part, because we're not out of the woods. Everybody says, you say you're healed, right? I say I have recovered. I use recovered because I think some part of me, Josh, feels that this monster can come back. Do you ever feel that?
Not anymore.
Wow.
Not anymore.
I need some of that water. Whatever water you took, I want some of it. You don't feel it anymore.
No. And even if it did come back, it doesn't scare me anymore. So.
How so? How would it be different now?
I mean, I don't think it would come back because.
Do you feel better prepared this time?
Yeah, I mean, if it did, I would probably use homeopathy again. But I mean, I felt just through my own learning through this process, I felt the different cycles, and I relapsed. I got the illness. I relapsed. A couple years later, I relapsed again. And then last summer I had some symptoms return as well. Didn't have to go back on medication though, and I just feel it out on its way out. You know what I mean?
So do you feel like it's a headache, and you know it's coming, and you know that you can deal with it, and you know that there's something you can do about it, and you can see it coming?
I think you just learn. You learn to know yourself. It's like if someone knows that if they exercise every day, they don't binge eat or something, right? Or whatever it is. Like you kind of learn, like, hey, if I miss my morning meditation for too many days in a row, something, my behavior changes,
That's me. Yeah.
So I think I just, through years of doing this, I know myself well enough, and my daily routine and my life routine, that I just feel comfortable that, I'm out of the woods.
So for you who are listening to us at home, we are two people who have been in different, similar, dark places. But you hear the difference between how we deal with it. I still sometimes, when I feel like a symptom is even close to me, I still have that, oh God, how quickly can I respond to this?
And that's okay.
But what I've learned is that sometimes I don't have to respond. I just need it to be. Like I've said to people, I can't have this meeting today. Now, if I'm talking to Josh, I would feel comfortable with saying, Josh, not my best day. I can't give you my best today. And from the little bit that I've learned from you, I think you would receive that.
Of course.
But you can't do that with everybody.
Not all the time.
Not all the time. So do you share that with me, that there's some people that you might be able to say, we were going to have lunch today, but not going to be able to give you the best of me? And there's other people who you kind of write it out and go, oh God, help me through this? Or are you able to say no is no and that's it?
I mean, my life right now, I think, is balanced enough where I don't necessarily take on commitments that I can't do. For me, it's more with people. Like, just to give you an example, I went to a yoga training. I did a week-long yoga teacher training, and the whole week was about growth work and all that stuff. And I didn't tell them I had a history of a mental illness.
There's no need to.
Because I didn't feel there was a need, and I didn't feel like it would really help anyone, my growth or the group's growth, and I was just doing the work at the level we were doing it. So I just don't volunteer it to everyone, or maybe at a job, if I'm interviewing for a job, I wouldn't necessarily bring it up, but I think, like you were saying, it is important that we're understanding with each other, and because I've been through it, I can understand, I can empathize, and hopefully help others who've been through it. You had mentioned the addictions before. That's why, someone who's experienced addictions and then becomes a substance abuse counselor, might have some helpful things from their own experience. So that's kind of what I'm trying to do with mental illness. I'm trying to just teach from my experience and have a positive influence as best I can. So.
You're doing a great job. You're doing a great job. I'm learning as I'm sitting here with you. Because society is built in the way that is built, we all have to provide, we all have to do certain things, let's pay our taxes, let's not go to jail, those kinds of things. You bring out a really good point. We can, to the best of our abilities, become selective of where we put our energy and who do we share that energy with. That doesn't necessarily make you popular in a lot of circles. I've had to let go of and I still struggle with this all the time, the need to please. I was born with that disease. If you told me, what is the one disease that you recognize at the age 5? I would clean the kitchen, Josh, sparkling. If you want a kitchen clean, I can clean it. I will always volunteer to clean it because I do it well. But that was the way as a little girl that I felt that mommy knew I was good. So not until I was in my 40s that I realized, this is the way that I respond to that. So I have this little technique that I use now, the skill, right? So if I'm in your house and the dishes are there, they're bothering me because I know I can do them and I know I can do them well. And you will really appreciate me cleaning the kitchen, wouldn't you? And I said, they're not your dishes, Nidia. Stay in the moment. Stay in the moment. They're not your dishes. They're not the dishes because I'm not doing it for the right reason. I'm doing it for my need to please Josh and his wife. So when I leave the door, you can say, she was so nice. She cleaned the dishes.
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't have that problem.
You're not going to do my dishes?
No, I don't feel a need to please. I know people like that, and I recognize that. I was not born with that at all.
Darn.
Like, kind of the opposite. Opposite in the sense that I don't, like I said last time, I don't really care what other people think. And, yeah.
I have so much to learn from you.
It's no. I mean, people are different. I'm not saying it's a good thing or a bad thing. I could maybe come off as insensitive to some people, but
Really? Insensitive?
well,
I have to be there to witness that because I
mean,
would have a hard time with that one.
if someone is expecting something of me and it doesn't feel authentic to me, and I say no, someone might get offended.
Let's talk a little bit, if I may, about our upbringing. I think that some of us have, well, I knew, at least I thought I knew, what the rules were. I played by the rules. My role in the family is I'm the oldest child. I don't know who told me this, but I was responsible for a lot of things. I don't know who told me that. I can't tell you, Mom did, Dad. My mom would say, you're the oldest, so make sure your brother and your sister, nothing happens. But she never really said, I will lock you in the basement if, whatever. But I always felt the sense of responsibility towards my mother and my father, and I had to be the kid who picked up the phone to organize the birthday party, to recognize. In my late 40s, I have not rebelled. I have recognized that that is not my job. That I'm to celebrate them to the best of who I am. Did you have any self-discovery in your mental health journey, that things that you had learned in the past, you're going, not so fitting for me today? Any of that?
I actually do have the follow the rules thing as well. So that part of
Are you the oldest, youngest?
Oldest, yeah.
Okay.
But I always, like in school, I'd always try to do things exactly the way the teacher instructed it. And I realized when I was in the hospital at one point, there was like ground rules for the inpatient unit. There was like a poster on the wall.
Yeah, I know.
With like the rules.
Yeah,
and
I know.
I was in a very acute episode, and I was like trying to read them, and so that I could like make sure I didn't break any of the rules, because part of
Don't break the rules. Yeah,
I want to be of integrity, and for me, being in integrity and being honest is also respecting the law of the agreed upon law and whatnot. So I'm trying to read these rules, and I literally couldn't even read them. I was so scrambled, I couldn't even understand. Like I was reading them, and I couldn't even understand what they were saying.
Yeah.
But I did learn that I have that tendency, and that can get in my way sometimes in my life, because rather than maybe doing the choice that is the right choice in the sense that for me, in my life context, I might try to be applying some external rule to the situation. I do that with diet, for example.
Okay.
Rather than maybe listening to my body, sometimes there's a tendency to say, oh, well, there's this dietary rule I heard, I have to apply that. So it kind of takes me out of my inner knowing, Yeah.
You do a good job at the end of your book, because you give us kind of like a little map that if we wanted to use. And I know you don't mean it as a map. You probably mean it as a, hey, here are things that might work for you. And you talk about love and compassion, spirituality. How did you get to say, here are the things I want to close my book with? Because they're literally at the end of your book, which I thought was very caring. I felt like when I read your book, I've read it now 3 times from the last time I saw you. And like I said, it's part of my library, and I'm pretty jealous about my library. One of the things that I most honor are the books that help me heal and that remind me that I am part of the universe. No different, but not replaceable. I am not replaceable. As a member of the universe. I mean, a job, member of this, but as a member of the universe, there's one Lydia. So, at the end of your book, when you give these 4, are they 4?
10 tips.
My last 4 in the last page were the ones that I looked at for my last page, right?
There might be on the next page. There might be 4. Yeah.
I felt like it was a blanket. I was like, I can hold on to these. I've read lots of books, and I want to read many, many, many more. The only other book that I can compare that feeling was, you're not going to believe this, Lisa Nichols' book, who has nothing to do with mental health, who's one of the most powerful African American women.
Okay.
But in her book, no matter what, there's a chapter where she deals with someone who she loved very much, who's bipolar. And she's so kind and so generous about it that I felt that chapter alone, everything else was fabulous if you want to learn about business and, you know, how to develop and, you know, but that chapter I thought, wow, I could use this as a blanket to remind people what kindness, generosity, awareness, and self-protection and preservation is all about. That's the only other book I felt that. And I'm a fan of Maya Angelou. I love my Oprah, Coelho. But your book and her book were able to do that. So I hope that you can receive that from me.
Thank you.
What do I need to remind myself on a daily basis? I am your student. I am your student. What do I need to remind myself every day?
What I did in the book, especially with those 10 tips, is I really just shared what worked for me. So those were the 10 spiritual tips that I used, that I learned in my journey, that worked for me. Like follow your intuition is one of them.
Hard one.
Yeah, I mean,
right?
it's a daily practice, and I apply it every day, and I've seen the merits of it. So I really just wanted to share things that worked for me that I learned, and it's not an exhaustive list. So I'm sure there are a lot of other things that are helpful to people, but that's just what was helpful to me, and what worked for me. So.
So is it the little voice?
Intuition?
Yeah, is it the little voice? Is it the feeling?
For me,
is
it's
the
a
both?
feeling. It's like a gut feeling.
Okay.
If something feels right or doesn't feel right.
Do you get that feeling when you meet somebody?
I mean, I pretty much all the time am always in the practice. So I get up, I do my meditation and my yoga. I read the Bible, I pray.
All right, stop. Wow. Meditation, yoga, and the Bible. Okay, 6 more weeks with you. Okay, into graduation. You know that most people I've talked to are one or the other. So you find the Bible helpful?
I take all information and I synthesize what works for me. That's how I do things.
So is it what speaks to you of all of the things that you can learn from?
It's what makes sense based on my experience. I think because of the type of illness I had, the psychotic illness where reality breaks down and you don't know what's real or not, I had to kind of adapt and figure out how to survive. So for me, intuition has been a huge part. Listening, what feels right. And then also for information, I'm very, very objective. I actually consider myself very scientific. I treat everything like a scientist. When I get information, I try to be as neutral as possible, and I just I see how that applies to my life experience and other information, and just really I seek the truth. I mean, it's a practice of daily seeking the truth and being as truthful as I can with myself, because ego is slippery, and we can try to deceive ourselves, or
So do you think there's a place, from what I'm hearing from you, this is why I think it should be a class for Joshua, Alexander. I think you were supposed to be in a telenovela, Alexander.
Okay.
Alexander. You see, are you telling me that there is, and this is so great for me, are you telling me that there is a place between science and spirituality? Could these, at some point, I know there are some people who have been able to get them closer and closer. Do you think there is a place? Because most of the people who I meet in my circle, obviously is much smaller than the world, are either science or the holy, and all things holy, whatever that means for all of us. But you're saying, I'm taking this piece, I'm taking that piece, I'm taking this piece.
Yeah. I mean, we're getting kind of deep here, but
You're going to be with me for a while, so yeah, we can dip into all kinds of stuff.
I mean, I don't look at them as different. Like, to me, science, is a way of looking at the world objectively. But then when you get into quantum physics and you realize that the observer affects the outcome, then can we really be purely objective? So to me,
wow.
Science to me is being neutral, and that's what like the yogis do. They try to look at the world from a neutral place. So I just take all of it, everything, my experience, all the books I've read, all the information, and I look at what works, what is applicable. So like my intention right now is to have the highest good, in whatever I'm doing. So maybe some esoteric information isn't really applicable. And I had to learn that in my illness as well. There were things I was experiencing that were not applicable to my life. They weren't helping me hold down a job, pay my bills, survive, and yet there were all these things that I thought I knew or experiences that I was having that weren't applicable. So I really try to look at what's practical, what's applicable, and I really rigorously seek the truth, and within myself as well through my meditation. Because belief systems can be trappy. We grab a belief system and we hold to it, and then we don't necessarily see the big picture objectively, or we don't relate, because I'm the straight A student and you're not the straight A student. So we create these divisions, and I'm right and you're wrong, and so I'm really not a big fan of belief systems, in case you couldn't tell from reading my book. And my illness taught me that.
That's why I've read it more than once.
Yeah. But that was one of the greatest blessings from my illness, that my illness taught me.
Really?
Is not to trust belief systems.
So I'll share this with you because, this is a conversation with our audience, and we're going to have you back, which I'm really excited about, because we're going to do several of these conversations, and I think deep is appropriate sometimes.
Yeah.
Because I grew up, and I always start from I grew up in, in the Catholic Church, and there's a lot of rituals that I still hold on to that make me feel safe, they make me feel good. So if you go to my car, my granddaughter thought a green rosary was very appropriate, so she got me a neon green rosary.
That's great.
Okay? It's adorable. But people are like, Lydia, really, a green? I'm like, hey, it was a present from my granddaughter. It is absolutely perfect.
That's great.
And but people always look at me and go, wow. I can see it from over there. I'm like, I'm pretty proud of that. But having the rosary in my car makes me feel safer.
Good.
Is it scientifically proven that people who have rosaries in their cars get less I don't know, traffic tickets no, but it makes me feel safer. So I had to learn how to say, no, this just makes me feel good, and it's there because it makes me feel good. I will hold it if I'm having a hard moment in my car. I will hold it. So that's something that I kept. However, I did experience, once I was in a good place after my recovery, that I could no longer go to church and the emotion was not available for me. The connection that I thought in my previous life, as I like to call it, this one is much better, I must admit, I no longer had it. And I tortured myself because I felt like I was a bad Christian.
And that's a belief. That's a condition we place on ourselves.
I would leave church crying, asking God, what happened to me?
I think ego is at the root of most human suffering on this planet, large scale and small scale.
You brought that light to me right now, because I was like, I have the perfect example of how that pained me. Because that's exactly what happened to me. Exactly. I would go every Sunday. Nothing wrong. I mean, nothing changed in my community of faith at all. Like nothing had changed. However, I had been able to go there I was capable in practicing punishment. I would punish myself. I would go there, not feel good before I was going. I already had dictated that I was not going to feel good. I had already predicted that I was going to feel guilty. I put more money into, what do you call it, the offering. I would write a bigger check, not very big for all of those who know what I make, which is very little. I tried everything. I did a whole mass on my knees. I mean, I was completely punitive.
We do that to ourselves, and we do that to each other. We place conditions on others.
So you just put that blanket on me right now. So you need to do a class of self-discovery. That would be so neat, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I'd love to. I love talking about this stuff.
I want you to do all of these things, and it's my ego. I need it. I'm self-centered. I need it.
Oh.
But right now, you helped me with. I every once in a while say, and I got to go home and apologize to my husband tonight. Thinks he'll like you a lot after this too, because I'd always we should go to church. Nothing wrong with church. I'm talking about my personal journey. We should go.
I actually just started going to church, so it's kind of funny that you're mentioning this.
We should go. But this particular church, because that's where, you know, we should go. And he always looks at me and goes, because he does not practice what I grew up with. He's more universe surrounded, more, you know, there's a larger picture to him. And I don't come from the place, and I say this to people, and sometimes I do sound insensitive, I don't come from the place of being ill all the time. I come from the place of being healthy. And what does that look like for you? What does your salad look like? I tell people all the time. What's it look like? Yeah.
For me, it's being authentic and having a daily practice, being in the practice. Because if I'm not in the practice, then as time goes by, I lose myself again. So it's a daily practice to stay in it, to stay in the growth and the healing and the service and remembering, so.
Your own beauty. We just have a couple of minutes, and I do this with every guest, but I feel like I've done it a lot with you. So I'm just going to throw out some sentences, and you can, put whatever word you think I should end it with. I love.
I love. Love.
Wow, that's beautiful. I hope.
I hope humanity can heal and move forward.
I want my legacy to be.
I want my legacy to be service.
Oh, I hope you guys have enjoyed our chat here with Josh Alexander. And really, really look at his website. And you'll find a link through my website. You can listen to the podcast. He has a very soothing voice, so it's easy. You can listen to it, like I said, at the gym. You can call him, right? Can people call you for events
podcast?
And?
I don't have something like that. I do have an email on there. People have
questions.
You have
an email? Okay. So you're willing to answer some questions?
People have emailed me or asked me questions, and I also have a Facebook page.
Yeah, and it's beautiful too.
Could message me or whatnot.
So I invite you all to look at Josh's work and to invite him into your world and to learn a lot more, as I have right here, right now. We are bringing him back because we believe the conversation about quality of life is so important. My belief, God bless you.
Thank you.
God bless you at home, and please hold on to one another. The universe needs you. You're not replaceable. See you next week.